This is the setup that I'm going to paint today. I've managed to find these lovely summer flowers in our garden, and I always like the fresh flowers from the garden better than from the florist, and you can put all the lovely colours together. And I've balanced it out with this lovely citrus fruit, kept the background very neutral, and so let's see how I get started. I'm going to use this viewfinder just to really get my composition sort of fixed within my mind of how it's going to fit onto the square board here. So I'm holding it up to look through, and I can see the little mini kind of composition there, and that's what's going to hopefully happen up here on the board. I'm doing an underpainting. I'm using this very old, just a decorator's brush. I don't want any detail. I'm basically going to get some vibrant colour and texture down on the board before I then work over with the oil paint. And to start with, I'm going to use a contrasting colour, fairly contrasting colour to the actual flowers and the setup. So it's going to add some vibrancy to the painting. Once I get the oils over, you'll see how it kind of works with this layered approach. I can look through the viewfinder. I can get just a rough idea of where everything's going to come within the painting, just very quickly. Just get that down using this colour and just gradually build it up. And nothing's set in stone. I can change it as I go along, and that shows you how I get started. Get cracking straight on, get rid of the white, get into it. A lot of it's going to be covered up with oil paint anyway, so you don't have to worry. It's a good way to start a painting. Working on an underpainting of a still life, and it's got the fruit in it, and I'm in the process now of using this brush. It's not really a brush anymore, it's more just a stick. It's so hard, encrusted with paint, but I'm going to draw into the thick paint, the thick acrylic paint that I've already put onto the board with a big brush, and I'm just really drawing this fruit. And I love adding this extra texture. It also helps to just define where some of the objects are going to be within the painting. So I'm redrawing all the time when I'm doing these paintings, and this little bit here just gives you an idea of how I use this old brush just to sort of draw into the paint. You can't get fiddly with it, you don't need to, because it's an underpainting, but it does provide extra texture, and it helps you to sort of redraw into the work. flowers in oil paint with the palette knife, and when I work on something like a flower, I try and keep the painting as fresh as possible. So I do as little as I can to the actual flower with the paint. I'm just going to try and show you quickly how I work. I'm using really thick paint with the palette knife, and I'm just going to go in. This is a lovely big rose here. I'm going in with some paint, just very, very quickly, you know, not being fussy with it, trying to keep it as simple as possible. Just going in, making the marks. I'm not even mixing the paint because it's one of those lovely roses that's got like a mixture of red, yellow, orange colours. And as I said, I'm trying to keep it very simple, just looking at the basic shapes and gradually building it up. It's very thick paint. Getting those sort of angular shapes of the petals there. What I need to do now is perhaps mix up a slightly different colour. Let's have a go. A stronger red to get a little bit more definition. And just sort of go in just quickly like that. Not too much. And the other thing I like to do as well is to look at the colours around it, and up here it's quite light, so I'm going to just strengthen the shape by looking at that negative shape, if you like, of the behind and around the petal, just to accentuate that angular effect of the rose. Just going to try and give a little bit more definition on some of the here. It's the opposite side. It's a bit darker, or a lot darker, so I can get that contrast of the dark with the light as well. So it's beginning to take shape. I don't want to fiddle with it too much, so I'm just literally doing as little as I can to it, but just enough to create the effect of the flower. And in front of that rose there is a little daisy flower. So I'm really going to mix up some very thick white, fairly white paint, and I'm just going to go over that, and that will just add to the effect, the kind of the effect of it being 3D, bringing that little daisy in, keeping it again as simple as possible. What I need to get is a nice orange centre for that, orange and yellow. A bit more orange paint, yellow paint, and there we go. Again, thick paint, and just get that centre in, and that's giving this feeling of depth. So you've got one thing in front of another, and throughout the painting that's what I've tried to do. Just going to add some darks in here to show off that, and I might even go in with some more white. All the whites I use on the works, they're not actually pure white, because I'm adding in a little bit of colour just to take some of that harshness off. But I'm just going to go in with a bit more there, just to give it a bit more definition. And yeah, that's the sort of thing that will just help to create the feeling of the flowers without overworking it, and making the whole thing lovely and free and very fresh looking.